Okay, so 8:30 now, so I think we'll get started. So welcome everyone. This is part 9 of the Chartership Competencies Breakfast webinar series with CIWEM. So working through 12 of the Chartered Water and Environmental Manager competencies over 12 weeks. Okay, so here's just an overview of the C competencies. So the last 2 weeks, Jack and Ian have presented on C1, so the ability to manage resources effectively and efficiently, and also C2, understanding promotion and application of health and safety. So today the focus is on C3, so that's your contribution to sustainability. So we're following the standard format. So as those of you that have kind of stuck with us so far through the 9 weeks, firstly, thank you very much for following the series, and you'll be familiar with this format. So introducing the competency, setting out key questions, excuse me, giving some example responses, setting some activities for today, setting some activities for this week, and then cross-referencing to other accreditations. So as always, the exam question that we're being faced with C3. So you'll be expected to explain your understanding of the term sustainability and give practical examples of how you've implemented your definition. You could, for example, demonstrate the need to minimize waste, manage the use of non-renewable resources, monitor and review energy consumption, recycle and promote use of alternative materials. You may wish to carry out an audit of your workplace to assess its sustainability credentials. So just to say here, you don't need to be covering off every single aspect of this kind of exam question, but breaking it down into the key questions. Again, don't need to cover all of these, but just pulling through the ones that are most relevant to your experience and getting that breadth to your answer is important. So the first question is, how do you define sustainability? What impact does your work have on the environment? What examples of sustainability have you incorporated into a project? How do you balance economic, environmental and societal factors? So the 3 key words there for sustainability, which we'll come on to in a second. How do the outputs of your work contribute to sustainability? What actions and measures have you taken to minimise negative impacts? What environmental improvements have you identified and delivered? So those are all kind of your definition of sustainability, looking at within the workplace, and then moving on to kind of more personal examples. So how do you implement sustainability principles in your personal life? How do you encourage others to adopt a sustainable approach? And how do you promote sustainable solutions? So how you're personally implementing sustainability principles and then also encouraging and promoting to others. So we'll just break those key questions down with some examples. So starting off with definition. So really for me, this should be up front at the start of your response to this competency. So there are a range of places you can look to for examples of sustainability definitions. As this is an application to CIWEM for your chartership, use kind of quoting the CIWEM definition and having an understanding of the CIWEM definition of sustainability is a really good place to start. So CIWEM's definition is, to be sustainable, an action must not lead or contribute to depletion of a finite resource or use of a resource exceeding its regeneration rate. So do feel free to quote that within your response and kind of use that as a basis to structure your examples. You might also want to look to your company and the kind of vision they have for sustainability and tie that into your own kind of, personal ambition for wanting to work for that company because of their sustainability vision. So here the example is Thames Water's vision, which is here for you, innovating for life in a changing environment. And the person here working for Thames Water has said that this encapsulates the overarching objective which I set myself at work, to deliver a service to customers which is ahead of the curve and sustainable socially, environmentally and economically despite the intensifying pressures the business faces. So that's quite a nice example where you've got the vision of the company, sustainability vision, and then tying in how that meets their own ambition. Or you can keep it kind of purely personal or alongside the other two types of examples. So here a personal definition is future generations should not be disadvantaged by the actions and decisions taken today. Sustainability is about planning and operating in a, again the key word, socially, environmentally and economically responsible way. And then another personal example, I define sustainability as the ability to deliver the needs of today without compromising the needs of tomorrow. For anything to be sustainable, it must balance economic, social and environmental needs and impacts. So hopefully that gives you a nice idea of the types of definitions of sustainability that you might look to include. So now we're moving on to, so the question is, what's your contribution to sustainability? So you can look at this kind of different scales of context. So these examples on this slide are kind of looking to the company and bigger picture examples and how you sit within that bigger picture. So the first one here is, I operate within my company's ISO 1401 accredited environmental management system when conducting my work to act in accordance with the best principles of the mitigation of environmental harm and the enhancement of environmental quality. So that's quite a nice, in a nutshell, the company has certification in place and I work within that. Working for a company that aims to reduce its carbon footprint, I have a responsibility to ensure that where possible I limit my own carbon footprint and recycle within the work environment. So again, the aim of the company and then how the individual is working to meet that aim. My ambition to work and progress within the water sector is driven by my passion for working in an industry which has sustainability at the top of its agenda. So again, this is the individual kind of looking to their career aspiration being one in which they want to work in a sustainable industry. And it is an industry with a regulatory duty, so this is here talking about the water industry, to provide an essential service whilst working to go beyond this by enhancing the environment and people's lives. Working in an industry with a tangible benefit to an immediate day-to-day impact on society gives me both a sense of purpose and makes me feel that I'm making a positive difference to both this and future generations. So again, that's kind of quite a nice example in terms of it's the individual's aspiration to work in that kind of sustainable environment. And then the final example here, so talking about the impact that their particular industry has on the environment as the first part of the response. So again, water company focused, but water industry focused, water infrastructure and non-infrastructure have a large impact on the environment and communities through construction, visual aesthetics, noise, smell, traffic and energy use. And then the second part of this is saying how the individual works within that organisation to counter those potential impacts by challenging proposed infrastructure requirements, working to extend asset lifespan, resilience, and therefore minimising impact to customers and the environment. Okay, so moving on. So these two examples here are actually kind of within work and within project examples, and they're kind of holistic. So looking at kind of end-to-end whole projects, the strategy and approach that you might take, which is sustainable and contributing to sustainability. So an engineering project as a whole has all of these aspects built into it. So if you do work on these types of projects, a really nice example to bring in. So here, engineering projects can have quite a significant impact on the environment, requiring the use of large quantities of materials, which often have a large carbon footprint. The opportunity to minimise these impacts is best addressed through the design stage. As an engineer, I have the responsibility to consider the sustainability of the design. This is usually a major consideration in the options appraisal process and is generally taken into account through a multi-criteria analysis which seeks to balance the different aims and aspirations of the technical, economic, environmental and social aspects of the scheme. So that multi-criteria analysis there is really capturing the approach to ensure sustainability. It can be more challenging to ensure that sustainability is kept at the forefront of the design process, And this is best achieved within the design input statement, which can be used to set design targets or identify sustainability goals or requirements. So they've stated that multi-criteria analysis looking at sustainability in the whole, but then even gone beyond that to say that they're keeping sustainability at the forefront of their approach. And then the second example here, I quite like this example. This is just a bit of a different way of thinking about it and kind of putting rhetorical questions in to their answer and kind of thinking through how they like to think about the different facets of sustainability when they're designing a strategy. So when proposing drainage, energy, etc. strategies, I work with developers to explain the economic impact, both capital and maintenance cost, the social impact, will the proposed scheme be acceptable for future buyers, are they prepared to undertake required maintenance, and the environmental impacts. Is embedded carbon acceptable? Will production of net waste be minimised? Can the scheme deliver a net increase in habitat? How will the site runoff, water usage, energy usage be managed to ensure sustainability? So I think with this format, it would be fine to put it in as is, but you probably would want to go on to an actual applied example of the outcome of setting that strategy. And then this is honing in a bit more on kind of specific work and project examples, so getting a little bit more technical and a bit more focused in, but that again is absolutely fine, and drawing on your experience that might be more relevant to the type of experience you have. So the first one here is, I assess mains, pump and reservoir replacement schemes in which I determine supply and storage requirements. These need to meet future needs whilst maintaining a current level of service while simultaneously keeping the impact on the environment to a minimum. So that's the sustainability kind of aspect to this. And this can be done specifically via the use of hydraulic models and completing current condition assessments using new technologies to extend asset life. Second example here, so I've worked on strategic flood risk assessments that provide supporting information to councils and ensure that all future development is sustainable in terms of managing flood risk to proposed and future sites. So I know we've talked in previous sessions around how you might structure your answer, and it may be that you have a kind of more detailed response as part of this, and then maybe a kind of shorter example to complement. So this second example here could be a good example of that. And the final example here, on a project I am managing to design a replacement pumping station, there is a need to consider the carbon emissions from the pumping station during its life cycle. The existing station is over 30 years old and the pumps are not the most efficient, therefore electricity usage is high. The replacement station will look to implement more efficient pumps to reduce energy requirements, but I've also included an internal renewables specialist to investigate the scope for incorporating renewables in the final scheme. Okay, so moving on to another aspect, which again, good to include within your response to this one. So it's your contribution to sustainability. So as well as kind of showing what you're doing as an individual and the part you're playing to contribute to sustainability, you also want to show how you're promoting that to others and also encouraging others to do the same. So that's what these examples are showing. So the first one here, I promote sustainability to younger generations by speaking to schools about water use and efficiency. When planning work, I measure my anticipated carbon footprint on projects and seek ways of reducing it through the use of conference calls, webinars, and digital deliverables to cut out unnecessary travel and issue of printed material. I'm keen to promote the benefits of these activities and include as part of my monthly reporting to the client an illustration of how such actions have reduced the carbon impact of the study and provide economic benefits. I've led my office in the creative illustration of these benefits to both clients and my peers. So those two are kind of around promotion, and then on the kind of encouraging others side of things. So at certain consultancy, I was part of the Rising Awareness Cutting Edge initiative that encouraged the reduction of energy consumption and considered efficient material use, control of water and recycling. And the final one here, when working with developers or planners, I'm keen to encourage them to go beyond the minimum statutory requirements. An example of this is encouraging developers to seek the optional additional surface water, flood risk, energy, etc. credits for BREEAM assessments I undertake above and beyond the compulsory elements. And then finally, I remember kind of my mentor feeding back to me on this particular competency that she really wanted to see real kind of personal, at home, day-to-day life examples in this response, as well as within work project examples. So I think it's good to draw this in as well, yeah, for this competency. So here's just a couple of examples of more personal sustainability contributions. So I commute to work by bike and promote the use of technology to conduct online meetings to reduce journeys. Where possible, I try to minimise the need to print documents and drawings. I recycle at home and minimise my energy, water, so using a shower timer, and my food waste, using a Wemery. My energy company supplies and generates green energy and is opposed to fracking. And the second example here, both inside and outside work, I try to minimise my environmental footprint. At home, I am water efficient, using a water butt in the garden and only washing full loads. I save energy by switching off devices not in use. I have reduced plastic use, for example, by using a reusable coffee cup, and I routinely recycle, and I reduce my carbon footprint by car sharing and cycling when I can. Okay, so we've worked through the competency, looked at the key questions, and then laid out a few different examples there at kind of different scales, both at home and personal. So the activity for today is to discuss with your peers, how do you define sustainability? So we've gone through some kind of set definitions from different organisations, but also think personally how you think about sustainability in the round. And consider the implications of the work that you do, so kind of on the environment, sustainability, and how sustainability does need to be addressed. The implications for your company of considering sustainability, the implications for a client or project that you're working with or on. And then what action have you personally taken at work? Have you included sustainable approaches in projects? Have you contributed to an environmental management plan? Have you promoted renewable resources, waste reduction, carbon footprint, etc.? And then moving on to the more personal side of things, what actions have you taken at home? And then for all of that together, what positive outcome has your action or advice resulted in? And then for this week, you could look to spend 15 minutes answering the key questions as they were laid out, and then make a list of 3 problems or projects that you have personally worked on in your career, and prepare bullet points for each to demonstrate how you've contributed to sustainability. And then that should then structure your response to this competency. So as always, just a slide here cross-referencing across to other accreditations. So if you are also looking to go for beyond Chartered Water and Environmental Manager, also Chartered Environmentalist, Engineer or Scientist, there are these other cross competencies which you can be looking to for this one. So for Scientist, demonstrating an understanding and commitment to health and safety and environmental issues relating to employment. For Environmentalist, applying environmental knowledge and principles in pursuit of sustainable development and environmental management. Influence others to promote behavioural and cultural change to secure environmental improvement beyond legislative compliance. And promote a strategic environmental approach. And also encouraging others to promote and advance a sustainable and resilient approach by understanding their responsibility for environmental damage and improvement. And then there's one at the bottom here for Engineer, which is undertake engineering activities in a way that contributes to sustainable development. And we had that engineering example earlier in the slide pack, which would be good to draw on. Again, just quickly running through the tips, same week on week. Always write in the first person, so I'm only interested in what you've done, not what your team has done. Be honest about what you've contributed to a project. Understand why you are doing a particular task. What is the bigger picture? So again, drawing on those bigger picture examples and how you're feeding into them, as well as your kind of more specific project examples and personal examples. Be concise. Remember what you have written. And don't limit yourself to experience at a current employer or paid employment. Do look back across the whole course of your career. Okay, so that's it for C3 in your contribution to sustainability. Just wanted to kind of tag on at the end here a bit of wider kind of CIWEM news. So again, I think we have touched on this in previous sessions, but just to say that the Fast Track to Membership course, which is a paid course and goes through all aspects of the chartership journey, is now available online. And this is new for this week, that the next Fast Track to Membership course has actually now been scheduled, and that will take place on the 29th of June. So please do have a look at the CIWEM website to find out more information about that. And there are some links at the bottom and a contact email address if you are interested. And again, just to flag that the CIWEM Mentor platform is now open. This is really in its early stages, but is continuing to grow and get a kind of wider base of mentors. I think not just for working towards CIWEM, but also, you know, if you're just looking for a mentor within your career as a kind of wider piece, then still a really excellent resource and a good place to go. But also if you are specifically looking to work to chartership this year or next year, then a really good place to find a mentor to guide you through that process. And particularly when it comes to once you've done your application and you're looking towards your interview, using a mentor to maybe set up a mock interview in advance. So yeah, really good place to go to link up with a mentor for that. And then finally, just to say, so next week will be part 10, and it will be C4, so the final of the C competencies, understanding, promotion and application of quality enhancement, and that will be run by Jack. Please do fill in the survey. It helps improve the series. We're looking at feedback all the time and trying to incorporate in the sessions that we're rolling out. And again, if we roll out this series out again in the future, and please do book 24 hours in advance so that you can ensure a place. Great, so I'm just going to have a very quick look at the Q&A. And Jack and Ian, if you could be on standby for these as well, that'd be much appreciated.
Yeah, Katie, the first question you answered, so if you look at the second question, they said
okay,
they were
great.
too hasty.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
They've thrown in diet and fashion, which you can also talk about.
Yes, okay. Is it appropriate to discuss your personal contribution to sustainability in this section, in addition to your work contribution, for example, diet and fashion? Yes, it absolutely is, because it shows how you as an individual are living your life in a sustainable way. And that is, you know, absolutely valid to put in as much of that as you can, alongside your kind of professional ambition to work in a sustainable industry. So yeah, all of that's really valuable and good to include. Does this competency lend itself to a few shorter examples, or do you recommend using 2 still? Yeah, I think the way I kind of structured my response, just to pull in how I did it, was to kind of have the definition up front. I put the CIWEM definition up front, and then I put my kind of company vision in and how I wanted to work within an industry with that sustainability agenda, and then moved through a couple of quite short project examples, and then finished off with my own personal way in which I kind of promote sustainability to others and encourage others, and then also how I, in my home life and my own personal life, contribute to sustainability. So I think that's quite a lot, and it is quite a few short examples to kind of make up that whole response. So yes, I think a few shorter examples is the way to go with this one. How do I join the mentoring scheme without being a member yet? I'm working towards the CIWEM Chartership, but can't seem to join without already being a member.
I could probably help with that one. So
great,
I
thanks,
don't think you have to be a member, but you do have to sign up to the website. So you can access the CIWEM website without being a CIWEM member. You just, when you sign up, I think it's like a guest. But in order to complete your Chartered Water Environmental application, you'd also need to have an account on the website just to access that part of the website. So do have a look at the website, have a look at the mentoring site, but you don't need to be a Chartered Water Environmental Manager to access it. There is an approval process, so once you fill it in, it does go to someone just to check you're not a spam robot thing. but that should all be completely accessible. If you're having any issues, have a look at that web page, and there'll be a link on there to contact the support team. But yeah, have a look at that. But you definitely don't need to be a member to have access to it. So just try again and persist on it.
And then there's a final one. Thank you for your response. However, I'm signed up to the website, but it says I need a membership number to join.
All right, fair enough. I'll have another look at it.
Yeah. It might be worth contacting CIWEM HQ directly, and there's a phone number on the website, or you can email them as well to get a direct response. So I think because it's quite new, isn't it, Jack?
Yeah, so it's very new, and
yeah.
where on the other one in the chat is where on the website is it? So if you go to, when I found it, it was on the homepage and then news, and then it was under mentoring. But we'll provide a link in next week's webinar as well.
Yeah, maybe if we focus a slide in on that, and we'll have a look at the detail in the interim. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Also, this is being recorded, so the recording will be on the website shortly, and we can perhaps put more details on as well onto the web page.
Yeah. The other thing to think about.
I'll send you the link.
Sorry, the other thing to think about is obviously whilst we're focusing on the Chartered Water Environmental Manager and Chartered Member of CIWEM at the moment, there are a range of grades. So I certainly started as an environmental partner, I think it's still called. And at the time, I'm not aware that this has changed, CIWEM were offering a year's worth of environmental partnership membership for free if you attended a CIWEM event. So if you are signing up for the fast track membership and you think it's going to take you more, counterintuitively more than a year to get there, then it might be worth investigating whether you can join as an environmental partner, either as a free member or it's quite affordable, and you still then get most of the benefits in terms of magazines, some of the journals, and you also get a membership number there as well. I did it because I felt it was a good opportunity for me. Also, when I signed up for a year for free and then 1 year paid, but I also knew that once I started paying for something, I'd want to make it put a clock in my own mind about, well, if I'm paying for it, I might as well go for the chartered version. So I definitely think that's a good way to, and it's a good way to demonstrate your part of your commitment to CIWEM, that you're joining at all levels potentially.
That's
but you
great.
could look at non-chartered member as well.
Thanks very much, Jack, and thanks everybody. So I think that's time for this week. So yeah, look forward to seeing you all next week for C4 with Jack. Thanks a lot. Bye.